Okay, let's get right into it. Who is really winning the 21st century? If you forget the daily headlines for a second and just look at the big picture, a fascinating power struggle comes into view. So today we're going to break it down, round by round, to see who truly comes out on top.
To figure this out, we're not just going to stare at spreadsheets. No, we're framing this whole thing as a contest. A real clash of titans, each with a completely different game plan for shaping the world we live in. So, in one corner, you've got the United States, pretty much the reigning champion of the post-war era. In another, you have China, the lightning-fast contender that has totally reshaped the global economy. And in the third corner, we have the European Union, a different kind of heavyweight, one that plays the long game with some serious regulatory and diplomatic muscle.
All right, let's kick things off where all global power really begins, the economy. This first round is all about financial muscle. It's what shows us who has the resources to actually fund their ambitions on the world stage. So if you're talking about pure economic size, well, the US is still out in front by a huge margin. We're talking over $30 trillion. Its economy is still the biggest on the planet, no question. Now, the EU and China, they're basically neck and neck for second place, but for now, the US holds that title.
But here's the thing, it's not just about size, it's about speed. And this is where it gets interesting. China's economy is expanding at a blistering 5% a year. I mean, that's double the pace of the US and 5 times faster than the EU. This right here is the engine that's closing the gap, and it's closing it fast.
Now, here's a potential weak spot you've got to look at. That massive US economy, it's carrying a national debt that's actually larger than its entire annual economic output. By contrast, both China and the EU have kept their debt levels in a much more moderate, manageable range. And that could be a huge advantage for them when it comes to long-term stability.
On the other hand, China has this massive advantage, a war chest of over $3 trillion in cash reserves. This gives it immense power to invest in whatever it wants, infrastructure, technology, new alliances, all across the globe.
But when it comes down to the currency that really makes the world go round, the US dollar is still king. I mean, most global trade, from oil to coffee, it's all priced in dollars. That gives the US a really unique and powerful economic lever. The euro is a solid number 2, and China's renminbi, well, it's slowly but surely gaining ground. So, that's the economic picture. But as we all know, money isn't everything. Now we enter the second round, which is really the battle for the future itself, the race for technological dominance. And when we look at the future of technology, there is one number that is just staggering: 70%. That's the share of global AI patents being filed by China. There's no other way to see it. It's a clear signal of their ambition to lead the next technological revolution. I mean, today we all know the American tech giants, right? Apple, Microsoft, they shape our digital lives. But China has built its own powerful ecosystem of titans, like Tencent and ByteDance, which completely dominate at home and are now expanding their influence everywhere. Meanwhile, you've got the EU, which has these critical strategic players like ASML that are absolutely essential to the entire global tech supply chain. The world of semiconductors, the brains inside all of our devices, shows this complex power map perfectly. The US leads in designing the most advanced chips. The EU builds the irreplaceable machines that actually manufacture them. And China? China is pouring billions and billions into catching up so it can become totally self-reliant. The fuel for this whole tech race is talent. And right now, China is producing way more graduates in science, technology, engineering, and math than anyone else. They're creating this vast pool of brain power to drive their innovation forward. It's actually a pretty straightforward formula for dominance when you think about it. Combine massive investment in research and development with an unmatched pipeline of new talent, and what do you get? A very clear path towards becoming a global innovation leader.
Okay, so we've looked at the money and the tech. But how does all that power translate to actual influence on the world stage? Let's find out in our final round, the global influence game.
So, in the arena of traditional hard power, both the US and China hold a permanent veto-wielding seat at the UN Security Council, which is a huge deal. But the US still has a decisive edge with its unmatched global military footprint and its deep, long-standing alliances like NATO.
But in today's world, power isn't just about having the biggest army. It's also about attraction and influence, a much more subtle but maybe even more important contest.
This is what we call soft power. It's the influence a country has through its culture, think Hollywood films, through its values, its foreign aid, and, crucially, through its ability to write the rules of the global game that everybody else follows. And here, we see two very different strategies at play. The EU, as a whole bloc, is the world's largest donor of development aid. China, on the other hand, is building influence with its massive Belt and Road Initiative, funding these huge infrastructure projects all across the globe in exchange for strategic partnerships.
This kind of influence is often measured by something called a soft power index, and it's here that the US and the EU really shine. They consistently rank in the top 5, which just goes to show how much cultural and political pull they have around the world, something that's been built up over decades.
So, after 3 rounds covering money, technology, and influence, who is the undisputed winner of the 21st century? Well, the answer might actually surprise you. It turns out there's no single champion. Instead, what we see is that each of these titans has its own unique superpower. The US still dominates with its dynamic innovation and the power of the dollar. China's incredible strength is its manufacturing scale and its state-driven tech ambition. And the EU, it wields the Brussels effect, setting global standards for everyone else, and it offers an unmatched quality of life.
The future, then, probably won't be dominated by just one of these powers. Instead, it's going to be shaped by how they constantly interact, how they challenge each other, where they decide to cooperate, and how they ultimately learn to coexist on the same stage.
And really, that leaves us with the most important question of all. As these giants continue their contest, what will the world they're building actually look like? And what does all this competition mean for the rest of us?